New Deep Dive.
Have you ever searched for something online and, had that little nagging feeling that maybe the results aren't quite showing you everything?
Mm-hmm.
You see the same few links right at the top again and again, and you just wonder what else is out there beyond page one.
Yeah, I think most people have felt that. If you have, you're definitely not alone.
Yeah, definitely not.
And it really points to a much bigger fundamental conversation that's happening right now about how information gets organized and, well, presented to us online.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating challenge. It's emerging from the UK, all about Google's, let's face it, dominant position in search.
Right. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA.
Yeah, the CMA. They're proposing some pretty significant changes, things that could fundamentally reshape how we find information online and also how businesses compete.
So our mission really in this deep dive is to unpack what this proposed strategic market status for Google actually means. We need to explore this idea of fair ranking in search results, which isn't as simple as it sounds, and also understand the critical concerns of publishers. Their content, let's be honest, fuels so much of the internet we use every day.
Okay, so let's unpack that first part, the UK situation. We have to start with just the sheer scale of Google's presence. Right?
Oh, absolutely. In the UK, we're talking about a staggering, 90% share of general search queries. It's huge.
90%, wow. So when you look something up, the odds are overwhelmingly that you're using Google.
Exactly. And, that level of market share, it naturally leads regulators to worry about potential anti-competitive practices.
Right.
The CMA believes such a dominant position could allow Google to influence competition in ways that maybe aren't beneficial for consumers or for other businesses trying to compete.
So it's not just market share, it's the power that comes with it.
Precisely. It's the power to potentially steer or limit consumer choice, maybe stifle innovation. That's the core concern.
Okay, that sounds like a powerful claim itself. What specific consequences is the CMA worried about? What's pushing them towards this strategic market status idea?
Well, their core belief, looking at the sources, is that Google's dominance just makes it really difficult for new search engines, or frankly, other online businesses, to gain any kind of foothold. And that can stifle innovation. It could lead to less choice for you, the consumer, and make it harder for businesses to get their products or services seen if they don't sort of play by Google's rules or fit neatly into its algorithm.
Which brings us to the proposal itself.
Exactly. That's why the CMA wants to grant Google Strategic Market Status, or SMS. It's under this new Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act, which actually just came into force earlier this year.
Okay, SMS. And what's the big deal about this status? What powers does it actually give the CMA?
Well, what's really fascinating here is that this status would give the CMA truly significant expanded powers to regulate Google search activities. This isn't just, a warning shot. It's the first time they're using these new, pretty robust powers under the Act. It's a big step.
And there's a timeline for this.
Yeah, for those following closely, the final decision on whether they designate Google with SMS is expected by October 13th, 2025. So still a little way off, but the process is underway.
Okay, so let's say it happens. SMS is implemented. What could the CMA actually do? What actions could they take? I'm guessing it's quite direct stuff.
Very direct. The sources lay out some clear potential actions. First, they could mandate selection screens.
Selection screens, like when you set up a new phone.
Exactly like that, to help users easily access alternative search engine providers. So instead of just defaulting to Google, you'd actively see a choice of engines. That immediately boosts visibility for competitors.
Right, that's a huge shift from how things mostly work now.
Yeah.
What else is on the table?
Beyond that, they'd require Google to apply, and this is key, fair, and non-discriminatory rules for how businesses are positioned in search results.
Okay. Tackling potential self-preferencing.
Exactly. The concern that Google might favor its own services or maybe big advertisers. And crucially, they also aim to provide greater transparency and control for publishers over how their content appears. We'll definitely need to dig into that more.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned data portability, too.
Yes, and that's really key for fostering innovation, isn't it? Enabling consumers to potentially transfer their search data.
How would that help?
Well, it could really help level the playing field. It allows new services to maybe emerge that don't have to start from zero, trying to build up that massive data pool that Google already has.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the CMA's overall belief is that these measures, taken together, will genuinely increase choice for UK businesses and consumers, and importantly, support innovation within the UK's own tech sector. It's about creating a fairer, competitive landscape.
Which leads us nicely into this concept you mentioned, fair ranking. It sounds, well, almost obvious. Don't we assume search is already fair? What's the hidden issue here?
That's a great question because, yeah, we do tend to think search results just magically show us the best or most relevant stuff.
Right.
But fair ranking as a concept aims to counteract these inherent biases that can creep into the algorithms. It's about ensuring a diverse range of content gets appropriate exposure rather than just letting a few top results hog all the attention.
So fairness isn't just relevance, it's about diversity of results.
Exactly. It's about actively battling the inherent biases of, say, popularity, or even the algorithm's own tendencies. It's trying to break through that potential echo chamber effect.
This is where it gets really interesting for me, because I've definitely done that just clicking the first link and maybe the second. You don't even scan the rest sometimes. It's almost automatic.
It is. It's a learned behavior for many of us, and that's what researchers call position bias.
Position bias, okay.
It's that tendency users have to click on the higher-ranked items, sometimes almost regardless of their actual relevance compared to things lower down.
And that creates a feedback loop.
Precisely. It creates a self-perpetuating cycle. High ranking leads to more clicks, which signals popularity or relevance to the algorithm, which then reinforces the high ranking.
Okay, and that pushes other potentially valuable stuff down.
It can marginalize really valuable content that just happens to start further down the list. So it's not just about what's technically best, it's about what gets seen. And position heavily influences what gets seen.
Wow, okay, that makes perfect sense when you put it like that. So researchers are actually developing strategies to counter this, to try and achieve this fairness.
Yes, absolutely. There's a whole field looking into this. One approach is called statistical parity fairness.
Okay.
The aim there is basically to ensure exposure, how often something is shown or clicked, is roughly proportional to an item's actual wordiness, which is often measured by its underlying relevance score, separate from its rank.
So making sure things that should be seen based on quality actually are seen.
Kind of, yeah. Trying to align visibility with relevance more closely. And beyond that, researchers are also exploring things like demographic parity.
Which is,
That aims to equalize exposure levels across different groups of users, trying to prevent results from being skewed towards, say, the preferences or search habits of one particular demographic.
interesting. And what about some of these more technical terms I saw mentioned?
Yeah.
Entropy-based metrics, epsilon greedy fair strategies. They sound complex.
They do sound a bit academic, don't they? But the core ideas are actually quite intuitive.
Okay, bring it down for us.
So, entropy-based metrics, think of entropy as a measure of randomness or diversity. These metrics are basically tools to measure how biased or concentrated the search results currently are. Are all the clicks going to the top few, or are they more spread out? It quantifies the problem.
Got it. A measurement tool. And epsilon greedy.
Right. Epsilon greedy fair strategies, despite the name, are about introducing a little bit of controlled randomness. The epsilon represents a small probability, so most of the time, the algorithm shows the top-ranked, most relevant result. But sometimes, with that small epsilon probability, it deliberately shows a less popular, maybe slightly lower-ranked item instead.
Ah, like taking a small gamble on diversity.
Exactly. It's a calculated way to actively boost the visibility of potentially diverse or less popular items without completely sacrificing overall relevance. It strategically nudges the algorithm towards broader discovery.
That's fascinating. And it's not just theoretical research, right? You mentioned NIST.
That's right. The National Institute of Standards and Technology and the U.S. NIST has actually established a dedicated research track specifically for fair ranking.
Wow.
Their goal is to develop measurable indicators, actual metrics, for bias in search results, to give us concrete ways to assess how fair search results are and then hopefully improve them.
So the ultimate goal is?
The ultimate goal, really, for these fair algorithms is to present both the well-known popular items and relevant lesser-known items in response to the same query. You get relevance, but also breadth.
Makes sense.
Now, achieving complete neutrality, perfect fairness, that remains a massive challenge, probably impossible. But these principles provide a framework, a direction for more equitable access to information.
And why does this matter to, the average person searching?
Well, ultimately, it's about making sure you get a truly comprehensive and diverse set of results when you search for something. Not just what's already popular or what the algorithm thinks you want based on past clicks, but a broader view.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a significant improvement. But okay, it's
Definitely.
not just about what gets ranked, is it? The CMA investigation also highlighted some pretty serious concerns about how Google collects and uses publisher content.
Absolutely.
Especially now with the rise of AI summaries popping up right in the search results. That feels like a whole new can of worms.
It really is a central and maybe even more contentious issue right now. Publishers are finding it really difficult to secure what they see as fair terms and get adequate control over how their content appears.
Not just in the normal blue links anymore.
No, exactly. Not just in standard SERP results, but increasingly in these AI-generated responses, like Google's AI overviews or answers from Gemini, their AI assistant.
And the publishers feel.
They feel their content. The articles, the information they create is being used to train and power these new AI systems, often without specific permission and certainly without what they consider proper compensation or control.
Right. And the European Publishers Council made a point about this, didn't they? Something about a monetization gap.
Yes, that's a key phrase they used. Their argument is essentially this. Google is building and monetizing services based on the content publishers create, while at the very same time, these new AI features might be undermining the publisher's own ability to generate revenue from that work, perhaps by answering user queries directly so users don't click through to the publisher site.
It feels like a real bind for them. A catch-22.
It's a classic dilemma in the digital age, amplified by AI. And news publishers in particular are making the argument really strongly.
What's their specific concern?
They argue that independent professional journalism, which, is pretty crucial for a functioning democratic society, is genuinely under threat because of these practices.
Because the business model is breaking down.
If they can't make money from the content they invest heavily in producing, it becomes incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to sustain high-quality journalism over the long term.
Yeah.
And that affects the whole information ecosystem we all rely on.
Okay, so what are the potential solutions being proposed to tackle this side of the issue, the publisher concerns?
Well, the proposed measures we discussed earlier, the ones the CMA could enforce under SMS, aim to give publishers greater transparency and more control.
Like needing consent for AI answers.
Yes, including potentially requiring explicit consent for their content to be used in those AI-generated answers. That would be a big shift.
But is it likely to happen? How complex is this?
Well, it's worth noting that the CMA has, for now, classified these specific publisher concerns about their negotiation position and getting fair payment as Category 2 issues.
Category 2, what does that actually signify? Is it less important or...
It doesn't mean less important. It generally means it's recognized as a significant and complex issue, but one that needs further careful consideration. It signals that there isn't an easy, quick fix.
Because the whole area of content licensing for AI is still being figured out.
Exactly. The dynamics are evolving incredibly rapidly. But, if we connect this back to you, the listener, this isn't just some abstract business dispute between corporations.
Right.
It directly impacts the availability and eventually the quality of the independent news and information that you probably rely on every single day. If fair compensation models aren't found, well, the very source of much of the internet's value could diminish.
So putting it all together, we've covered the really ambitious scope of this UK challenge to Google search dominance. It touches on fair ranking, user choice, data portability, and these critical publisher rights.
Yeah, it really highlights just how complex achieving genuine fairness is in this algorithmic world we live in.
Feels like a pretty pivotal moment, doesn't it?
I think it is. The CMA is really flexing its muscles here, using these new powers to push for potentially fundamental changes in how such a dominant platform operates. It's tackling these long-standing concerns about market power and fairness head-on.
A very public attempt to rebalance things.
The very public, very comprehensive attempt to rebalance the digital ecosystem, at least within the UK, for now.
So the big question then,
Yeah.
what does this all mean for your next search? If you listen to this, think about how these proposed changes, if they're implemented, could fundamentally alter how you interact with information every day.
Yeah, what new choices might you actually have? How might your search results look different in a year or two?
It definitely leaves us with a provocative thought, doesn't it? Could this UK move mark the beginning of a genuinely fairer internet one, where those hidden biases are brought more into the light and diverse information really gets a chance to thrive.
Or is it perhaps just the first very complicated step on a much, much longer journey towards that ideal? It's definitely something to watch.
Subscribe. New Deep Dive.